This piece, called Falling Man by Will Sheffer, is meant to illustrate that there is no point in living if you have still yet to live. You get used to the sound of the wind as it rushes past your ears. An ominous sense of velocity becomes familiar after a while. You watch as the stars whiz by you like flying candles. You listen to the planets as they sing their songs. You think to yourself, at any moment, I'm going to come down into the earth. But you never do, at least not yet. You begin to wonder about gravity. You become obsessed with it. You say to yourself over and over, I'm falling. But soon as you get used to not having your feet on the ground anymore, in fact, the ground itself becomes a concept that no longer has any meaning to you. For some reason, you can't seem to stop talking. If someone can hear you, you must be alive. You scream, I'm alive, to no one in particular. You discover that you don't like to look down, but prefer to look up for obvious reasons. And then quite suddenly, for a moment, without any warning, you have this undesirable, unbearable urge to cha-cha once more. Before I started falling, I was a ballroom dancing champion. Expert at 10 dances, they were, in order of my expertise and preference, cha-cha, salsa, mambo, samba, paso doble, rumba, tango, slow waltz, quick waltz, and foxtrot. On a perfect night in 1983, at the age of 22, I became the cha-cha champion of the world. No one remembers that now, but it's true. Even before this, however, I was famous for my cha-cha. My dancing partner Svetlana defected from the former USSR in 1981 specifically to dance with me. And at that time, we were legendary. You'll love Svetlana. She had an accent just like Norma Shearer in Idiot's Delight. You know, the wonderfuls and wearies. I'm so very crazy about you, she would often say to me. Sometimes I wonder if she'd actually defected from Russia, or she hadn't really hitchhiked to Manhattan from Duluth and made the whole thing up. But she was the acknowledged Soviet champion of the jive rock step, a dance for some reason only Baltic women could master. And the fact that only Svetlana could really only look sexy in Giordacci jeans, wearing a shade of lipstick that was 5 times too red for even the most fabulous 1940s movie star, proved to me at least that she was genuinely Eastern European. As I said before, we won the title of Cha-Cha Champions of the World on that perfect night, January 1983. Our ballroom floors were so polished that a few couples actually fell that evening, but not us. My strong arms that night supported her in poses of inspired and delirious sexuality. Our footwork was impeccable and unrivaled. We glittered and sparkled and shined. And of course, although the steps we navigated on that mirror-smooth floor were uncompromisingly difficult, we did not once stumble or trip, or even slip or falter. Perhaps there could have been a more natural passion between us, yes. But our acting was flawless and inspired. Not for a second was there a false move to our grace, to our speed and authority. And now I realize that in my life until that moment, there had never, ever been the remotest possibility of failing. It wasn't even a question. I wouldn't have allowed it. I'm not that type of person, no. That night we floated, Svetlana and I. We glided, we dazzled. And for a moment, at the very climax of our embrace, when I and her, the entire crowd gasped together at our impossible beauty, I was almost happy. You must forgive me for talking so much. Just since I started falling, I don't really dance anymore. And so it seems I'm endlessly talking, endlessly meandering on about the past as a dancer. Hope I'm not boring you. Really all I'd like to do is entertain you. You see, that's what ballroom dancing is really all about, entertainment. And it makes people feel good about their lives, about living, about being alive, you know. I'm a born entertainer. I even used to dance with West Side Story as a child for my relatives. My mother encouraged me. As a matter of fact, I'd like to entertain you right now, even in my condition, as it were. Yes, that's what I really like to do more than anything. Anyway, that night, Svetlana and I celebrated in my hotel room. We drank champagne from Svetlana's silver cha-cha slipper, which she had stained with her red lips. We got drunk, and before Svetlana could stain me red, I convinced her that we should make an appearance at the post-competition party in the Buckeye Room of the Cincinnati Hilton. When we made our entrance, the party was in full spring, and the waves seemed to part for us as we made our way into the room. Compliments flowed endlessly along with the alcohol, but I felt vaguely uncomfortable that night with Svetlana on my arm. Sometimes it seemed to me that destiny had a way of making you ready for her arrival, of creating the conditions necessary for her to play her cards. Because I can't explain why I felt as I did in that moment, at the exact moment in the Buckeye Room of the Cincinnati Hilton Hotel on the night of my triumphant dance, that my young life until then had been nothing more than a championship performance. A perfect 10, absolutely, but a performance nonetheless. A graceful, well-choreographed, impeccable dance for the relatives. No sooner than I had this impression, or rather, as I was having it, I saw an enchanting stranger from across the room. The crowded room, as it were, our eyes locked. He was not precisely a stranger, for I recognized him. I had a lust for him, as hard as it is to believe, but I must admit it to you now, that at the ripe age of 22, and even at that day and time, I was still a virgin on that fateful night in Cincinnati in 1983. And as Paulo and I slowly and inexorably made our way towards each other, my heart beat with the experience perhaps only by 22-year-old virgins who've never admitted to themselves that they are homosexual and their mothers. But there was no turning back. Destiny had opened her arms wide to greet me, and so had Paulo, who kissed me warmly on both sides of the cheek with congratulations. This reaction caused an immediate and uncontrollable erection on my part, so to speak, and I understood by the look in his eyes that he had coveted me as much as I had admired him. Quickly, without too much effort, I lost Svetlana, who was demonstrating her dance to a group of enthusiastic older men, and made my way to Paula's room. I don't really know how to put it into words what happened next. If I could dance it for you, I would dance that night for you and trivialize it with words. After all, Paulo and I barely spoke ourselves. Sometimes I think love is an invented private language, a language lovers make up as they go along that they can only speak and understand. Isn't that what love is? Just a language, an intricate, intoxicating language that you've forgotten and must now remember. But surely you understand what I'm saying. That night, almost immediately upon entering the room, I felt his arms and we began to dance. That was the language we spoke all that night, a language that was all our own. We danced our words as if our tongues had been burned out of our mouths. I wonder if you can understand what that felt to me. Please understand, because tonight I want us to be like lovers. But wonder if you can know what it felt for me to dance the cha-cha with him. I, who is a champion of dance. To dance with him, to dance with a man, for me, who had danced 1,000 dances with 1,000 lovely women, to dance with a man for the first time in my life. How can I explain it to you? How can I describe it as it felt, as I fell for the first time in my young life, as I fell into the eyes of him, as I fell into the depth of his smell, into the strong arms of him, into his mouth, as we fell into each other. You must forgive me. You must forgive me for talking so much. I know it's silly, but sometimes I think I'll stop talking, I'll die, that you'll forget me, that you will forget I was a champion dancer, an expert at 10 dances. I'm afraid that you'll judge me. You'll condemn me for falling that night. I want so much to entertain you, but you must understand that night it was if I had to fall. It really didn't feel like falling in that moment. It felt like being born. But you understand that, don't you? I'm afraid of boring you. I'm afraid I'm running out of time. I'll just tell you this. Paulo died a year later. It was so fast. I didn't even have the chance to learn. Later, Svetlana took me to the clinic to get tested, and I've been falling ever since. Sometimes I see other falling people around me. I want to grab onto them as we fall. I want to dance with them up here in the sky. I do have one thing to ask of you. Remember me, so that all of this talking might not have been in vain. Remember my voice. Remember me.